You keep using the phrase men who claim to be women. Would it be fair to say that your position is that there is not really any such thing as a trans woman? There are women and then there are men, some of whom claim to be women, and that your worldview and your analysis of the rights claims that get agitated here begin from that premise?
100%. I mean, the only prerequisite to be a trans woman is to be man, to be male. I can't be a trans woman. There's a reason for that. It's biological sex.
Well, I hope that clears things up for you, Waleed. But by the way, you should ask your friends in Gaza what they think of men who claim to be women. But I digress. Well, welcome to The Lyle Shelton Show. It's great to have your company. That was, of course, the incredible Sal Grover, who sadly lost her appeal against a biological man, Roxanne Tickle, who demanded access to her girls-only social media application, Giggle for Girls. Now, this was the week where our Liberal and Labor politicians made us a laughingstock around the world as the law they voted for in 2013 to change the definition of woman forced judges in the Giggle v. Tickle case to decree that biological men have a right to the private spaces of girls and women in this country. You can't make this stuff up. So that all played out in the federal court last Friday, and I happened to be there, and this is what I had to say at the time. Take a look. What do you say to parents who are concerned about biological males accessing their space?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just outside the federal court in Sydney where Sal Grover in the Giggle v. Tickle case has just heard from the full bench that she has lost her case. This is Australia's What is a Woman case. Sal Grover has been found to have discriminated against a biological male, Roxanne Tickle, when she excluded him from her smartphone application. This is a landmark case. It was very emotional being inside the courtroom. Sal Grover broke down sobbing uncontrollably, and I felt like that as well. This is a terrible decision for the girls and women of Australia. It's now time for our politicians to amend the Sex Discrimination Act, which is the law which has created this situation. It was amended under Julia Gillard back in 2013. It needs to be fixed now. Both Labor and Liberal voted for it at the time. They need to get together and do their job and restore the definition of woman into the Sex Discrimination Act so that the girls and women of Australia can be safe, that their sports can be fair, and so that people can get on with normal life. Now, the woman running away from my question about whether parents would be happy with biological males sharing private spaces like toilets and change rooms with their daughters was none other than Equality Australia's legal director, Heather Corkle. Now, audio listeners need to jump onto YouTube or Facebook or X to see this. It's worth checking out the look on her face when she actually gets something other than the softball questions that were being served up by the legacy media. The look on her face is priceless. Now, remember, Equality Australia's patron is none other than the Governor-General, Sam Mostyn, who is supposed to be apolitical. Now, the Governor-General should not be taking sides in political debates about what is a woman or whether kids should be put on the trans train to chemical castration or bodily mutilation. She needs to resign as patron of Equality Australia immediately, and if she won't, the Prime Minister must demand that she does. If not, she should resign as Governor-General. This was the week that brought shame to our nation. We look like fools. Angus Taylor has vowed to restore the definition of woman to the Sex Discrimination Act, hallelujah, if he becomes Prime Minister. But is it too little too late? And I think it probably is for the Liberals if they really want to be taken seriously on this. Here's why. They voted for Julia Gillard's 2013 amendment to the Sex Discrimination Act that created this mess in the first place. And then in 9 years of government, the Liberals did nothing to fix the problem. They avoided so-called culture wars. Several of their parliamentarians since have voted against One Nation's attempts to fix the Sex Discrimination Act, and they are never reprimanded for doing so by the Liberal leadership, even though these Liberals are trashing girls' and women's rights. Now, Angus Taylor wants us to believe that the Liberals know what a woman is. Well, they've got a long way to go to win back trust, in my view. Meanwhile, Sal Grover is going to appeal all the way to the High Court, having lost in the federal court. Well, good on you, Sal. We're with you 100%. Her case has drawn support from unlikely quarters. My feature interview this week, coming up very shortly, is with Drew Hutton, the co-founder of the Greens political party, so don't go anywhere. Well, still on Australia's gender confusion, Ben Fordham, the radio host, broke an extraordinary story this week. Biological males are competing in women's community Australian football competitions in New South Wales under policies based purely on self-identification. No biology, no common sense, just ideology. Blokes who think they are women playing football against women. And the response from the Minns government has been completely contradictory. Premier Chris Minns says New South Wales must recognise, quote, the biological difference between people who were born male and who were born female. And he says that reality must be reflected in the law, including in female sport. Well, that's good, but hang on. This is the same Minns government that changed birth certificate law so legal sex can effectively become self-declared. So which is it, Chris Minns? Because You can't claim to defend women's sport while your government is erasing the meaning of biological sex in law and public policy. Then there's Chris Minns' hapless Minister for Women, Jodie Harrison. She was asked a very simple question this week. What is a woman? She couldn't answer it. Instead, she said, quote, "This matter may be subject to further legal processes. It would not be appropriate to comment on the specifics of the case." Now, this was after the Salgrover judgment. Now, think about this. The Minister for Women, dodging a question, cannot define what a woman is. How can Labor protect women's rights, women's sports, or women's spaces if they can't even say what a woman is? And while all this is happening, my good friend Kirralie Smith is heading back to court next week on Monday and Tuesday after being hit with a $95,000 vilification penalty simply for speaking about men competing in women's soccer. Now, that should alarm every Australian who believe in freedom of speech, fairness and safety for girls in women's sport. Family First has been warning about this madness for years, and while the major parties either stayed silent or marched along with the ideology, we've been one of the few speaking out. Women and girls should not have to wait until someone is seriously injured. As I said earlier, the question of what is a woman has dominated Australian politics this week, and it's not just a left or right issue. Sitting in court supporting Salgrover last Friday was the co-founder of the Australian Greens political party, Drew Hutton. Now, when I was growing up as a kid in Queensland, Drew Hutton was on television every other night fighting to save koalas or trees or some other environmental cause. Now he's joined the fight to save girls' and women's identity. I caught up with Drew outside the federal court. Well, it's a privilege to be here with Drew Hutton, former member of the Greens political party in Queensland. Drew,
I'm a current member.
Current member. They tried to kick you out, didn't they?
They tried to kick me out, and then I took them to court.
Over this issue, essentially, wasn't it?
Well, it was actually about free speech. I supported somebody else in the Greens who was being cancelled by the genderists, and I was told I had to delete all the comments there that were pro-gender critical, and I refused on free speech grounds. So they kicked me out basically on the basis of that.
And then you appealed and they reinstated you?
Well, I took them to court, and they were found to have breached my natural justice on at least 4 different occasions, so they had to give me my membership back.
What did you think then as a long time, you're Greens royalty in this country, your name is associated with the Greens movement, the environmental movement. As a former Queenslander myself, you were in the news all the time for wilderness causes and the like. How did it feel to find yourself on the outer with your own political party over the idea of what a man or what a woman is?
Well, I was gobsmacked, to tell you the truth. I'd been off. I hadn't been an active member of the party since about 2009 because I was the president of the Lockyer Gate Alliance for many years, and I was too much involved in stopping coal and coal seam gas coming onto our best farmland. So it came as a real shock to me actually that the party that I'd founded in Queensland and co-founded in the rest of the country had actually become a party which was more affiliated with identity politics than it was with environmental and social justice issues.
Look, as someone on the other side of the political fence, I could see that for a long time. While I might admire some of the environmental causes, but I remember when Adam Bant was elected to the House of Representatives, the first thing he did wasn't some environmental initiative, it was a motion about same-sex marriage.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not opposed to same-sex marriage, actually, but...
well, what's that got to do with the environment and the Greens political party?
Oh, look, we always were a party that had, social justice policies. And I mean, the 4 pillars of green politics are ecological sustainability, social justice, democracy and non-violence. And they're still my politics, basically, but the Greens have basically ditched most of them. I mean, they're undemocratic because they've actually expelled about 40 people, mostly women, from the party across Australia because they believe a man can't be a woman. And so that's democracy out the window. And non-violence, I mean, they support organisations, or they won't criticise organisations like Hamas, which is a terrorist organisation. It's a party that's just lost its way.
No, I think that's right. So if you, and again, we agree to disagree on same-sex marriage, but just to follow the logic, if you redefine marriage and say that it can be between 2 people of the same gender, why then can't someone then just identify as a woman? If you can redefine marriage, why can't you redefine gender?
You can. If somebody wants to be a woman or wants to call themselves a woman, I couldn't care less. I mean, I'll judge people by the content of their character, not by their, whatever they call themselves. But if that means that you then can go into women's spaces, like this fellow here today wants to do, if they can go into women's change rooms or into refuges or prisons or whatever, and be treated as a woman, then that's just beyond the pale.
Well, why should it though? I mean, if two blokes can acquire children through commercial surrogacy by renting a worm and creating a trade in babies, why can't someone who identifies as a woman have the same equal rights as a same-sex equally married couple have? Why can't that also convert to the individual who wants to identify as something different to our traditional norms?
Well, you just raised another issue there, surrogacy, which is enormously complex. And
No, it is, but it's a consequence of same-sex marriage, and just like there's consequences to gender identity, identifying as someone as the opposite gender, and this all being about equality, then equal access to women's spaces has to be the consequence of this ideology.
I think there are two different ideologies. I mean, it's a matter of, you see, you're taking your philosophical framework from a Christian framework, and that's fine.
Well, possibly, but it's also a biological framework. Two men can't produce a baby, so if you have so-called equal marriage, you've got to then discriminate against children by denying some children the love of their mother or father. The same way, if you're going to have gender identity and have equality there, then Roxanne Tickle has every right to be on Sal Grover's smartphone app.
Well, look, we're going to differ here, Lyle. I just think I was supportive of gay rights and lesbian rights up to to same-sex marriage. I think there are plenty of single-sex households in this country, unmarried, single mothers or single fathers and so on. The key criterion is love, not sex in that case. But what the trans movement did, what the gender ideology movement did, was take that particular victory that they had, which was really just a vote of confidence in the family, as far as I'm concerned, and turn it into this ideology that says a man can be a woman. That's not what the gay movement said. They didn't say a man can be a woman. They just said that two men could love each other.
We might have to agree to disagree on all this.
Yeah.
I've studied the political movement behind this for a long time, but and I really appreciate you engaging in the dialogue and the back and forth. But just give me your reaction to today's decision. We were both sitting in the courtroom when that decision was handed down. Sal Grover became emotional. What was your reaction?
I was incredibly disappointed. If that is the interpretation that's going to be put on the Sex-Discrimination Act, and the amendments that came in 2013, courtesy of Julia Gillard, then there is only and the High Court, which I'm sure it's going to go to now, says the same thing. Then there's only one thing possible: that Australians are going to have to vote for candidates in the next federal election that are prepared to change that legislation, and only candidates who are prepared to change that legislation. It is repressive. It's completely regressive, I mean, it's misogyny, basically, ensconced in humanitarian sounding formulae, but really it's a further way of males oppressing women and undermining their rights. And by the way, the other.
Well, thanks so much for your company this week on the Lyle Shelton Show. I hope you're liking the new format. Please share this, get it out. It's so important to be a force multiplier. More people need to know about what's really going on in Australian politics. Have you been physically violent to someone?
Never. I've never even met the person that I'm under this order against. So
how does that work?
Because I took information from the public domain and I shared it and asked why are males in female sport. And so there is clear protections, and Sal Grover's case showed this, there's clear protections for males in law who wish they were women, but there are no clear protections for women in law who have hurt feelings, who have had infringements upon their rights.
So there's a biological male out there who has an AVO against you. You're in court. Now, let's just go to the court proceedings that are underway at the moment. I came and sat in for a couple of hours yesterday. I noticed that your lawyers were using pronouns that don't correspond with the biology of the people that are suing you. What's all that about?
Oh, it's really frustrating, Lyle. So the judge, and this is an order throughout all the courts, for all judges, all barristers, anyone in the court must use the preferred pronouns of the defendants. But, I was talking to Sal Grover this morning, and as she pointed out, nobody asked what my preferred pronouns are, because it's pretty obvious. I'm a woman, I am she, her, miss, but they have to ask what the preferred pronouns of the males are.